Hi, I'm Tam. Welcome to 50/50. Today I'm here with my friend Danielle and we're going to be talking about, well, we thought we'd start with big dreams, little dreams, right? We never know where we're going to go actually, but we'll start with big dreams, little dreams and see how we go from there. So you were just saying, and Grayson helped us restart, so we're professional. You were just saying that, last time we were talking about the, how do we start talking about it? The art of war, the war of art, right?
The War of Art.
The War of Art.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the author?
Steven Pressfield.
Okay.
I've now read, audiobooked all three of his books after that one because it was just addictive. And then he also recommended another book in his book and I've started audiobooking that one as
how
well.
cool. How cool.
Just amazing.
So I don't think we talked about it last time, but to have our first session, so I'm at your house in your podcast studio called Tailwind Studios with yourself as the studio manager and your lovely nephew Grayson as the AV expert, we are a marvel. We think he's a marvel. As a part of the conversation, the part of the reason we're in this room in your podcast studio is this idea of the big dream versus the little dream, right? And you were reading The War of Art, and I really have to think to get that the right way around,
me too,
right? Yeah,
me
I'm like,
too.
I know the art of war,
Yeah.
War of Art. And last time, before we even started our first session, you had to run someone to the hospital, high drama, middle of the night, right? And you had to make a sort of decision, do I still have my first session with Tam because I've got a really good excuse not to do it, right?
Yep.
Will you say a bit more about that, how things can get in your way when you're trying to do something you really love?
Yeah. It was Stephen Pressfield talks about it as resistance, and resistance will come up, and the closer that you get to living your heart's desire, the tension and the resistance will increase.
Yeah, right.
So I thought that's all that was going through my mind in the middle of the night when I'm driving back from the hospital from Bunbury to Perth.
I was going to say not in Perth, in Bunbury.
2 hours. And I had him in my head going, oh, this is exactly what he was saying. I'm really close to taking the first step on one of my dreams to have a studio and to have interesting people come and use it and work with my nephew, which is just amazing. And then the universe will say, well, how badly do you want this dream?
Yeah.
Let's give you a little bit of stress. Let's test that tension.
Yeah, what's with that, right?
Yeah, and I just kept hearing him say, that's the point. That's the point where you make that choice. No, I'm going to go for what I want. And I thought, oh, I'm being tested. And I was driving home and I think I'm being tested, and I don't want to let Tam down. I don't want to let Grayson down, and I don't want to let myself down.
Yes.
Because it would have been so easy to call and say, oh, my sister-in-law's in hospital. She's had an accident and we need to cancel tomorrow.
Of course.
Yeah.
Not even a weak excuse, a really good one.
It was like a brilliant one.
Really good one. So your resistance was very clever.
Yeah, it was. And that's the thing, it is very clever.
Yeah.
And it was just, my own, I created that. I created that to keep myself safe. I created that drama and that resistance because, there's also another little voice in me that doesn't want to take a risk and do something that's
Yes.
because putting yourself out there and following your heart and following your dreams is a risk. And there's a part of you that wants to keep you safe from that. And, what will people think of me? What if I disappoint people?
Yes.
Will it be stupid? All of that stuff.
Yeah, that's so right. And it's funny because even if something's not particularly working, the comfort of the habit, I've realised recently, is so strong. The draw of, I've got this opportunity to do something new and better, but now that the opportunity's there, I'm very used to the old and not so good.
Yeah.
Like that feels much safer.
Yeah.
Even though what's the risk, right? Like that's the actual real thing. It feels so risky, but what's the actual risk? The risk is, this is the risk for me. You do something you think is really joyful for you, feels right, feels like what you're meant to be doing, and then it doesn't succeed, right? Or other people disagree that it's fabulous. So after we taped our first time last time, you guys sent it through to me. It was meant to be the rough cut, but Grayson's very good, and I felt like it was the polished cut. Anyway, I listened to it and I loved it. I think I wrote an email back saying, "Oh my God, I love it so much." And then I thought, hang on, I'm actually not just doing this podcast for me. So that's wonderful that I love it, but what if other people don't love it?
Yeah.
And they might not, right? Like the mystery is I'm trying to do something that feels right to me, feels in line with my heart or soul or whatever you want to put it, has been there for a long time as a dream. This opportunity has come up as a way to express it. It does feel a little bit risky. And what's the risk? The risk is rejection.
Yeah.
The risk is people going, "Oh no, that dream that you had about yourself, that's not actually anything we want to know anything about." Like, feel free to go to Danielle's, but you can just receive the recording. Actually, I'd be totally willing to do that. So that's a good second plan if it's just you and me that want to listen to it,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I really do.
It's very hard not to just, at this point anyway, so I'm 50 now, right, and there's lots of cliches around caring less about what people think and getting freed up, and there is a truth to that. Definitely even in the last 10 years it has become freer for me to go, what's the actual risk, right? And it's so joyful. Like when I was driving here today, I thought, I'm going to go and do the podcast with Danielle and Grayson, and there's such a lightness to the whole idea. Every time it pops into my mind, I go, oh, yeah, that's so cool, man. And it's not the weight of things that have connections to them, right? So like the little dream, big dream, it's sort of unfair to call my business the little dream because it's been massive.
Yeah.
But
I think Steven Pressfield would call that your shadow career. So it's something that you do that's very close to what you want, but still a little bit, safe. It's safer.
Yes.
And when he said that, I was like, oh, God, that's my whole life.
Yes, I was going to say
my whole life is the
too.
shadow career. He talked a little bit about, this one got me right in the chest when I heard it. He said, if you're someone that's always worked for entrepreneurs and which is me, my entire career. I have worked with very entrepreneurial people and I have been on their team, on their bandwagon. And he's going, is that because you're secretly wanting to be an entrepreneur? And I go, I think I might be.
Wow.
So you kind of, in your shadow career, you kind of align with people that are doing what you wish you could do because you think it might rub off on you or something like that.
Yes.
It's like you're kind of getting a little bit of what your heart wants, but like, it's still not real.
Yeah, that I can feel it. And it's a really good match for me too, right? Because I've always wondered why I, haven't done a lot of promotion on LinkedIn or this and that. And I realised the other day, part of the reason is exactly what you just said. The thing that we're doing now is me and me fully expressed and whatever this will turn out to be. Yeah. The role I was playing was an element of me, something that I was good at. I remember saying to a client some years ago, I said, I'd like to move away from training as much and just do more coaching. And she said, but you're so good at it. And I thought that is why I've done it for so long, not so much that it's my heart's desire, but I've always done it. I've done it since I was a kid. I know how to do it well. I like doing things well. Thank you. Appreciate
Having been
that.
trained on one of your courses. Amazing.
It's so strange to be both considered good at something and have a confidence around it, but he said that's perfect. I've never heard that before. Your shadow career, it's close to what you want because it is close.
So you kind of satisfy your heart in a little way to say, I'm getting some of what my heart's true desire is in this.
Yes.
But when you kind of look at it, really, it's just a replacement.
It makes a lot of sense. It's very freeing. I like the thought of thinking about that more. And I also thought about people I might interview on this podcast, and I was thinking of different people that work in a similar area to me. And I thought, I better not interview them because, then I would be promoting someone who could be a competitor, right? And then my second follow-up thought was, I'm really comfortable with that because they're not actually doing what I really want to do. For them, I suspect for many of them and the way they express themselves, it is actually their heart's desire they're expressing.
Yeah.
And that's why they're more out there, and that's why they're feel more aligned, and they're much more promotional. I think part of the reason that I have sort of hung back a little bit, even though we've done good work and our business has become very successful, it's been as a support to Andy, it's been as a support to the family. It has been true to me to an extent, like that fellow said. That's real genius. You know what I was thinking when you told the first story about Bunbury? I don't think I'll get to interview Paul Simon on my podcast, but I don't want to limit us. But I wonder if I did get to interview him, whether he would say slip sliding away is about that. You know, slip sliding away. I'll torture people and sing a bit of it. Slip sliding away. We need guitar. Slip sliding away.
I'm not playing musical instrument, sorry.
Ready? You know, the nearer your destination, the more you slip sliding away. And I don't know enough of the verses to know whether that's correct or not. But that sounds what he's talking about, right?
Yes.
The nearer your destination, the more you slip sliding away.
Yeah.
And also this I shared a LinkedIn post about this podcast, and I said it felt like I was trying to hold on to a helium balloon in the easterlies, and it just wanted to get blown away because it was so easy to take my attention off it. It was so easy to get caught up in life, work, family, everything else, because this was only calling to me like almost, you know, they say like as a whisper.
Yes.
Like, don't forget your podcast.
Yes.
Remember you want to do your podcast? I just whispered Paul Grayson. I don't know how that works. You know, don't forget your podcast. I can't look at him either because I've got to keep the levels right. I'm a very good girl. It's also part of being a very good girl, right? Doing your shadow career.
I think we've established
it's okay. He'll figure it out.
We're not being very professional here.
How dare you?
We're learning. We're learning.
Right,
We've got to have beginner's mind.
I know, but I like to get it right.
Mind.
I like to get it right.
Well,
and I'm a good girl.
Yeah.
It's very restrictive.
Isn't it?
This is probably something we could break through here, right?
Isn't it?
Well, where did my career come from? My career came from being a good girl and being on stage as a 5-year-old singing Silent Night as a solo, and then on through school getting every job in mass, in church, every big production. The 25-year primary school anniversary, I had to do Silver Shoes and Golden Roses, something about the story of Mary. I still remember the teacher grabbing hold of my shoulder and going, just so you know, you're going to be the star of the school play, and me going, oh, no, because I had no choice. It made me unpopular with my mates because they all wanted these jobs that I was just getting without asking for them.
Wow.
So I've been really trained to be a performer.
You have been.
Like from little.
Wow. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, that's where it all came from. That's why when I first started talking in public, when I was in pharmaceuticals and I did a little talk at a doctor's day, and the manager said, oh, wow, you're a born public speaker. Yeah. And I thought, oh, right, I'll go off and be a trainer. You know, I can do this.
Yes.
And then I kind of got swept up in that, knew how to do it, sort of a natural, even though, of course, I had been trained for a long time, actually, in hindsight. But I was kind of a natural speaker, and then went on and on and on. And then eventually I thought, I remember I was doing some private work. So I'd created a little thing called Bubbles in a Breather. Did you come to my Bubbles in a Breather?
Yes, I did. Oh, that was so good.
It was so nice, right? And
Loved it.
It was meant to be the stuff I most like talking about. So this is some of the ways I'd tried to eke towards my dream, right?
Yes.
Talk about stuff I really cared about.
You tried some different things on.
Right?
Yeah.
Softer locations. Yeah. People that I knew would be interested, lots of women, a lovely card, a lovely, visuals, little, I had literally had champagne at the sessions,
you did.
had very pretty things. And anyway, the lady that was then, I feel like the place is closed, but there was a lady then running a place in Balcatta called the Flourish Centre. And she said to me, this is going so well. Shall we look how we can promote it and make it bigger? And I said to her, I don't want to do it. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, it's really nice. And I go, yeah, I get that. And I'm glad I've done it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk in front of small groups of people anymore.
Yeah.
And I say small groups of people because I still do have a desire to talk to big groups of people. And it's a funny thing, right?
Great thing about podcasts, Tam. Lots of people.
Right? That's true. And that was this very thing.
How exciting.
It creates a distance that I like. So I feel less vulnerable in this experience, particularly because you guys are here and make me feel very safe. But there's a gap, right? I can talk and whoever listens to it will listen to it, but I'm not literally sitting with them. And same with a large talk. I don't know if you and I have talked about this before, but I find it much safer to be in front of a ballroom full of people than to be in a room with 6 people training them, because there's a bigger gap, right? It's, you know, I was saying to you earlier I wanted to talk about anxiety today, but then I felt anxious and so I didn't want to talk about it. But it's connected to that. It's connected to being okay, being safe with people and being okay to be really close to people versus I've got something I'd like to tell you. I'd like to make a difference to you, but can you please stay over there? And whether it be on a podcast or in a ballroom, people are physically, in this case, much further away, and in a ballroom, far enough away. So
is that a vulnerability thing?
it is.
Yeah.
Because remember when this is part of the lesson at the moment is this vulnerability piece, right? And also being authentic, which ties into what we talked about last week. Because I was saying to someone yesterday, I said, I'm doing some work with my friend Danielle. I met her through training and then we did some coaching. And then she said she'd like to be my friend. And we were talking about it at lunch. And I said, I don't know about that.
That was weird.
Yeah. And I was like, why am I uncomfortable? Because I thought I really like you. I don't get a sense of that you're not cool. Because sometimes if people want to be friends, you go, no, you're a bit of a dud. Like, I don't want to be, not to be rude, but you, it wasn't that. And then you were clever enough to say to me, do you think it's because you'd have to be vulnerable? And I was like, you've got it. Because when I was your coach, I was bulletproof, right? It was all about you.
It was distance. Yeah.
Total distance, nothing about me, no need for me to be weak or ugly or scared or inefficient or imperfect, right? I'm like, tell me about you, Danielle, you know, and then I could be
And then you would just sprinkle your magic and I would feel better,
and I'd walk away feeling not vulnerable, feeling that I'd got
achieved something, that you've helped somebody, that you've been of service to someone, which does feed your heart.
It does, but it feeds both my heart and my ego.
Yeah.
Because, you know, anyone that's in an instructional kind of, in my opinion, anyone who's in sort of an instructional kind of space, whether it be training or coaching or even to an extent counselling, they both have it in their heart to help people. But, you know, we're human beings. We have egos. And I liked being the helper, the one that knew stuff.
Yeah.
It's much safer than being a friend who goes, oh, I feel a bit funny today, and then not know how your friend's going to respond or whether they're going to reject you for being weird or, you know, particularly when we had the coaching relationship.
Yeah, it was a transition.
It was a transition.
And for me too, because it was, that's so funny that you remember that moment, because that was a big moment for me too, because I also keep people at a distance.
Yes.
And I was having this conversation with someone about my friendships. And I thought, I'm not a good friend. I don't actively, you know, make an effort. And then we were catching up for lunch. I thought, I love Tam. Why isn't she my friend? Why aren't we like friends?
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, this is what I'm keeping us distant, you know. So you're keeping us distant. I'm keeping us distant.
Yeah.
And it was both of our like issues.
I know.
But you know, if you said to me, "Who do you want to hang out with today?" List 5 people. You're like your top. Like
That's so
I
awesome.
love hanging out with Tam.
That's so
But
nice.
It's weird, isn't it?
But, you know, I
so
did feel
weird.
very relaxed when you said you like to keep people at a distance, because what it did was, as you said, I was like, oh, good, because I'm glad we're friends, but I don't come on too strong, because I like a bit of, it was literally.
I was like, I just discovered that I could go to people and say, do you want to be my friend? It's like I just literally at 40-something discovered that I could do that. And to people that I wanted to be friends with.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, you accumulate people in your life. You know, you work with people and you accumulate people. So I hadn't actively, I have friends.
Yeah.
Have relationships.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there's that whole, you know, you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang out
I know.
with type of thing.
I think about that quite a lot.
So do I.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I want to be more like Tam. So she's now my friend.
How cool. How cool. Yeah, that was really quite the day for both of us, wasn't it? In different ways, you know.
It was.
So what else can we say about the little dream and the big dream? Because I think if I think about people I've met, worked with, trained, coached, I think there's a lot. If I think of people I know, there is really a lot of people in both camps probably. I would say there's people who are living their big dream as we speak, and I suspect that a lot of the people I interview will be in that camp because they'll be the people that will occur to me as someone who can tell us a useful story about their 50-50, right? Because it'll be what hasn't worked or what's been tricky, like being willing to be vulnerable and show both sides. But on the other hand, they'll be able to say, and this led to this.
Yeah.
Not this led to this mess where I don't know quite where I'm up to yet.
And do you feel that's true for you too? Like what we were talking about earlier with the shadow career and things like that. Your little dream is leading now to, because everything you've done up to this point, just listening to you speak on a podcast with the way that you choose words, the way that you sound so much better than me.
I disagree.
And I was reflecting on that, listening back to what we recorded last week, and I was thinking everything Tam has done in her career has led her to this point. You know, she now has these skills to go for the big dream and do well.
Yeah, I think there is some truth to that because I think how I feel about it is I feel like, oh, look at that, like this thing sort of popped up. It's a bit like the cliche around romance, which I don't know if I particularly believe, you know, when they say, oh, it'll just sort of fall into your lap and be easy. And I don't know that human relationships are ever very easy, but this whole thing has gently entered my life with ease. So whether it be the opportunity to work with yourself and grace, and the fact that Ash said if you haven't got a podcast, you should, like as a gift. And on your point about has everything led to this, now that I'm at this point, and I don't know where this is going to lead, but I feel good things about where it might lead.
Me too.
Yeah, I feel not really nice about it, and I feel nice in a not grasping way. That's the part I love most about it.
Yeah.
There's no, like, you know, I told you in one of our other conversations I'd done a lot of landmark previously, and it does, I know it sneaks into my language, but they had some very clever ideas and some very unhealthy people working with them. I think they're a little bit like, they're not a religion, but, you know, religion, the basic premise of religion is good, and then humans get hold of it and munt it.
Yes.
That's what happened with landmark. So they would have great ideas, and then people would join the fray and become manipulative or sadistic or controlling. But the actual teachings, all that fellow had done is gone back through the history of the world and gone, where's the best juice?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What can help us the most? And like I said last time, I've got some wonderful stuff. Anyway, the thing that occurs to me as a landmark thing, I think. I've said it for so many years, I actually don't even know. But committed versus attached. Have you ever heard that idea?
No.
It's very freeing. So you go, I want this outcome. The difference between committed and attached is I'm committed to it. I want this outcome. So the podcast I'm committed to, I'm committed to it. I love the idea of it working. It's my heart's desire. Attached is this thing has to work. If it doesn't work, we're all dead. Right? So in the business, and we've been running 7 years now, when that first started, I couldn't have been more attached. I'm like, I want to eat.
Yes.
This thing has to work.
Yeah.
And there's a great constriction in that.
There is, yeah.
As soon as I say it, I feel the constriction. Yeah. And it's like, this must work, and it's very fear-based, it's very driven, it's very survival, and I don't regret any of it, because the fact I can sit in here with you now is because we've created a life out of all that difficulty and struggle, but it's not free, it's not relaxed, it's not let's just follow the path that occurs to us as we go along with this ease, you know.
Yes.
And just yesterday I was thinking about sitting here with you, and years and years ago I was in this particular group that a friend created, and it was a very nice experience where we'd get together and we'd talk about life and work and be sort of supports for one another. Really lovely idea, and I enjoyed it for a long time. But in that particular period, which I'm just trying to remember how long ago it was now, probably Sam was little, he's about to be 10. I was still working as a contract trainer, and I couldn't have been more frustrated in that, right? I was just desperate to know what was next, but I didn't know what was next. And I'm an impatient person. I'm a fast-moving person. I'm not someone that goes, hey, it'll show up, man. I'm the opposite of that generally. I feel like it more in this, actually. It's bringing out more of that, hey. But then I was like, what is it? What is it? My friend actually bought me a necklace and it said something like, I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but it'll be okay, or something to try and comfort this frantic Tamara that she had in front of her every week going, what is it? What am I meant to do? I'm hating this, So if I think, let's say Sam was a baby when that was happening. I don't think it was pre him. I think he was probably a baby and I was escaping every now and again to go and hang out with these women. So there you go, 10 years, right? Or maybe 11 or 12 if I was to extend it. I was desperate then to figure out what would make the difference. And here we are now at the start of something all this time later. It would have comforted me if the future me had been able to come in and go, it's all right, stuff's happening, just hang in there. You're actually going to go to South America. You don't even realise South America is in your future because we went to South America for a year, right?
Yeah.
That was life-changing.
Was it only a year?
It was only a year.
You talk about it so much, I feel like you lived there for 5 years or
It's
something.
so funny you say that
because you loved it so much.
We loved it so much. And there's a group of friends that we got to the point where if we raised South America on our return, we pretty much bring it into every conversation for the last 7 years. And they'll go, oh, really? Did you go to South America? And I'll say to Andy, we've got to stop. It's so hard. It was so hard for us, I think, to not reference it because it was just
magical.
It was magical.
I feel it every time you talk, and you wrote a book about it.
I did.
That blew my mind.
I did. I've got one copy, and I'm so glad I did it. And my friend, I was talking about my course I did with Rise to Shine and some of the ways that I can be less authentic. We must get that audio actually, because that whole piece on authenticity I really want to share, and I particularly want to share because if I'm going to be doing this podcast about authenticity, I need to talk about the ways I haven't been. But anyway, I'm doing this Rise to Shine with Cindy Kennedy, having a great time in the year of COVID, and there was a beautiful woman I'm still friends with in there called Katrina Ferry. Hi, Kat. She's the best and a fabulous amateur photographer amongst everything else. Anyway, she was my coach for a little while, as a peer coach in that. And I hadn't written the book. I'd talked about it for the whole program, and I had about maybe 6 or 8 weeks before the end of the program, and she goes, Tam, she's a Scottish lady, I can't do the accent, Tam, when are you going to have this book done by? And I'll go, and she goes, you need to get it done by, give me a date. This is going to be finished by this date. And I've thanked her about 16 times because it was her that made me sit down, open the laptop. I created it on Snapfish. Snapfish is the equivalent of wedding photography book, right? It cost me a fortune. I had to wait for their 50% discount. And it's called You're Taking My Grandchild Where.
Yeah, it's a great story.
I love that title. I really love my own stuff,
funny.
right?
It's
Hashtag
so
modest.
funny.
It was the poor grandmas, and I see it. He was 20 months old, Sam, when we took him there, and I see 20 months old now, and I think, why didn't security, like police, docs, whatever you call, Department of Child Services, I cannot believe they let us put him on that plane to take him to South America. He was a tiny baby. It was so irresponsible. I always thank the grandmothers. Once a year I say, thanks for not getting in our way, and they just look at me haunted and judgmental because it was so bad. But it was so good.
It was so good. It changed your life.
It totally changed your life.
It changed your perspective on everything. And it changed
did.
mine too by osmosis. Like you telling me about those experiences also clicked something on in my brain as well. There's something to living your true heart and purpose, like your true nature.
Yes.
There's something in that, and that stuck with me for a very long time, and it's only now that I'm getting to do that.
Yeah. It's funny the timing of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you go, oh, it's happening now.
Yeah. But I always knew there was something else. And
that's
like
what
you,
it is.
What is that? What is that feeling?
What is that feeling, and what am I meant to do, and how am I meant to do it? The thing that year did was, of course, it was dramatically beautiful because it was the other side of the world and it was South America, Chile and then Peru. But the thing for me, my whole job in that time was pretty much to hang out with Sam and not be a trainer, and it allowed me to really get space and heal from a long history of was going to say resentment. That's Freudian, but it's probably right. And just the weight of the energy that I used to put into that, and just the resistance of not wanting to do that particular way. I mentioned to you before we started this morning that I was like, I want to talk about little dreams, big dreams, and I also want to talk about feelings that are under other feelings. And I don't know how much we'll talk about that today, but the thing that I did want to mention was when I was back being a contract trainer and having these conversations with my girlfriends going, what is it? What am I meant to do? This isn't it. And, really suffering horribly before I'd train, even though when I actually did train, I normally have quite a good time. So it was the thought of it I hated. But when I got in the room, once we got going a little bit, I'd quite enjoy the experience of being with the people.
Yes, and you must have, because you were good at it, and you, when you're presenting, I recall receiving you, seeing you and connecting with you in a very magical way, which I think you bring to all of your trainings, which is why you're so good at it. So once you're there and you're in you are being of service to people and are genuine about that. So I think it's that genuine wanting to help people that
thank you. I like you saying that. I feel like that's probably true. I do want to make a difference, but there was also a lot of fear there around I want people to think they've had a good day. So a little bit like we were saying before, the heart and the ego. The heart was I want to make this difference to you genuinely, and the ego or the fear was don't give me a bad score.
Yeah.
And that layer upon layer of emotion is what I wanted to mention, because I used to really feel massively anxious often before training, really anxious, like wake up 4 o'clock in the morning anxious, even though I'd done it for years. And it took me forever. I don't even think I realised it in that time. It was only in hindsight that I realised the anxiety was over the top of the resistance to not wanting to do it. So I had it. I'm very frightened. People aren't going to like me. I'm very frightened. It's not going to be a good day. That was the whole story I had running. But actually, later on when I went to look at it a bit deeper, I was actually like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I'm going to spend 2 days in a room. People are going to get 2 or 3 useful things. I'm going to be exhausted. It is the most inefficient way of people learning. And I'm going to put my whole heart and soul in it. I'll be a shadow of my former self. And I don't want to. But none of that showed up. It was just anxiety.
Yes.
And I was like, why would I choose feeling anxious, this horrible, cold, fluttery, afraid feeling versus the which was the other feeling underneath it, right? And I actually did this the other day. I was very worried about something to do with one of my clients and I felt anxious, very familiar feeling. And I did my favourite guy on Waking Up, Stephen Pressfield, and his welcoming emotions. And you feel the emotion physically, think about what story you're giving it, release all that. There's a whole meditation on waking up, which I can share the link to. But the same thing happened again. I was like, I feel anxious about what work I've got on this week. I'm worried whether I'm going to get it right. And then I did the meditation, and what was underneath that feeling of anxiety, that very familiar feeling of anxiety, was, I've got so much responsibility this week. I've got so much to do. I've got so much that's tricky. So it was like some part of me preferred feeling just pure afraid rather than connected to the reality of my reality actually isn't very pretty this week. It's hard.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
Why would I choose the anxious over that? I don't know. Habit maybe, or not actually liking that feeling, maybe even liking that feeling less than the anxiety. Oh, no, I know what it is. The anxiety is no responsibility. It's just happening to me, whereas the reality feeling is I chose this particular path, this particular work, and this is actually the experience I'm having around my own choices.
Yes.
It's not happening to me.
That was very profound.
Thank you. Just happened then and there.
It was awesome. But you could sense the truth in that. I
go,
could
hang
sense
on.
the truth in that. You're absolutely right. And I wonder if that's that little whisper of your true heart's calling going, this is your shadow career. Would you just get on and do what you're meant to do?
Yeah.
And it pops up in those ways.
Yeah. What a privilege to be able to have the kind of life where you can think about what is it that I really want to do, you know. I was thinking about this last time we were talking about, I was saying how I can relate to people that have had difficulty because I've had difficulty, and then I went on to say in a very moderate white woman in Western society way, and that has occurred to me again this week. I was like, it's been very helpful to actually look at the level of worry and self-concern and all the rest I've had and go, oh, wow, fancy having such an easy life that you can be worried about things that would just be the dream worry for someone else living in horror.
Yes.
I should say with an asterisk there, because I've had quite an issue around mental illness, that probably is a bit trickier and has created more difficulty for me. But still, it's within a context of a pretty good life, a pretty safe life.
Say, in terms of, you know, where we live.
Where we live, what colour we are. Supposedly our gender's very difficult, but I haven't had that very often. Shouldn't say that. That'll make people really upset, saying supposedly our gender's difficult. I think different women have had a very different experience.
Yeah.
And I had one recently, I shared about it actually. I think I shared about it on LinkedIn, or I might have planned to and I didn't, but no, I think I did share it. So I'd been banging on for years, I don't know what women are going on about. Men are fabulous. They don't treat us badly, right? Like I do. And then I worked with one of my clients, a particular division of one of my clients, for the first time ever, all the things people, right? Did I tell you?
You told me, but tell the
no,
audience.
it's fine. I was older than them. I was a woman. My husband was with me, and they just couldn't have been less respectful. They ignored me. If I spoke, they'd just turn to my husband to see if he was going to It was such a shock. And I hated it. And when I don't like things, I go, I'm not going to do that again. So I don't work with that group. My husband works with them. I could have learnt and grown through it. I don't want to. They don't deserve me.
But was that is this what everyone's talking about?
That's what everyone's talking about moment. I was like, yeah, rightio, Mrs. You've never had a problem, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
There it is for you.
Yeah.
And you didn't do anything different. You're exactly the same as you always are.
Yeah.
And you were just in a position where, because of your age and your gender and to be, you know, maybe my lack of hotness, because they definitely had it. You could tell they were like, if I had been a 25-year-old hot young woman, this group,
story.
they were very, you know, that corporate guy, slapping each other and trying to tell the better fish story. And they were like, you're not part of this story. And I was like, no, you're going to miss out on all my wisdom and what I can offer. And so I had to do a deal with Andy. I shouldn't share this, but I will. So normally we run a particular program and I run part of it and he runs part of it. And I said, I'm not working with these guys. And he said, no, you've got to do your parts or at least do coaching. I said, nah, they're dead to me. I have a very balanced approach in life, you know. And he said, it's not fair that I have to do all the training and all the coaching. And I said, Andy, do you remember I said to you 3 or 4 years ago that I didn't want to do training anymore? And you pretended not to hear me because you thought it would influence whether I worked with Discern. And he goes, I might remember that. And I said, so let's put it this way. I think you can do the work with these guys. And he goes, I think I can too. And I was like, okay, deal. We're even.
Oh, that's so funny.
But it shows, right? Like, it shows both, like, what the hell would I know as I have whatever opinion? Because I'm having this very narrow, very blessed experience of life, right?
Yeah. But it's just part of growing and learning and being part of the world, isn't it? I mean, that's what I'm discovering about things, and failure is part of it. That is part of the learning experience, and I need to embrace failure more. I've just been playing it safe for far too long.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I'm halfway through life now, and you know, I've hit that halfway mark, and I'm like, hang on a minute. If I want to get where I want to get, I need to stop playing safe.
I know.
Need to take some risks. And I'm going to reference Art of War again. He talks a lot about...
I think it's the War of Art.
Oh, did I just say it wrong again?
Yeah, you're really messing with my head, man.
Sorry.
But we know what we're talking about.
You know what I mean.
It's not the Chinese guy.
It's not the Chinese.
Although feel free to read that. It's very famous.
And he talks a lot about creativity for creativity's sake. And that is what we were doing. And that is something in my whole life I have never embraced. You know,
Yes.
creativity was something that was scheduled or something I might have time for later or
Yes.
something that had to fit around my other commitments. But at the heart of it, he talked a lot about he was driven to write his whole life. And if that meant living in poverty and having no friends, but every day doing the thing that he loved to do, then that is what his calling was.
Yeah.
And I'm just starting to understand that embracing creativity for creativity's sake is not only just an interesting thing to do, but it's a must.
Yes.
It's a must. It's listening to what my heart wants to do and embarking on all these creative exercises without having any idea how any of it's going to turn out.
That's right. No idea how any of it's going to
Is
turn out.
the beauty of life.
Well, it's kind of a thank you. This is what I just got from what you were saying. Every time you talk, I get like a queue of 3 different things in my head that I want to say back. And one of the things was, okay, so if we've had this privileged life, which it couldn't have been more like, just to be born in Perth is ludicrous in terms of the chances of it. I read this thing that something like 95% of the world's population will never see the ocean for real.
95.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's accurate, but when I thought about where the largest part of the world, the largest numbers live, I thought it could be. And if it's not accurate, it won't be far off it.
Yeah.
And so why I say that is, and location isn't everything. Like when they look at happiness for people, it's not just about, it's certainly not about monetary privilege, although we know we need a certain amount to just not be focused on eating all the time and the misery of that, right? But it's around connection, it's around faith, it's around all those other things that many people have throughout the world who may not have anywhere near the monetary privilege that we have, right? But we have this privilege around money, comfort, health, and for us, luckily, we also have those connections in life, family, loving connections that make life have meaning. But when you said that, you know, have to express the creative, it's kind of the thank you. For me, it kind of feels like, and I'm just thinking this for the first time, so I don't know if it's right or not, but it feels like it's kind of our job, if we've got this blessed life, and have an inkling that there's a way we can contribute that will make a difference, but is a joy to us, not us being martyrs, then that's a good thank you for the start we've had, right? The platform we've trying to, and you know, I always think people are doing their best. Like when I train people, they'll argue with that, especially if they're dealing with arseholes, right? Okay, that is their best. I do say it a lot.
Yeah,
I do say it a lot.
You.
I'm much more compassionate with other people than myself because
I
I never
did learn
think
that
I'm
from
doing
you,
my best.
and that was a long time ago, and that lesson has stayed with me, and I think about it all the time.
It's just super
Every time
useful.
I'm in a situation, I think the person that I'm having this situation with, they're turning up to work and they're just trying to do their best.
They are. That is their best.
Yeah.
It could be shockingly terrible.
It could be shockingly terrible.
Could be like, what
I'm
the
having
fuck?
a problem
That's
with it.
your best. But it, like,
Yeah.
I always say to people when they challenge it, I go, well, are you doing your best?
Yeah.
Are you coming from a good place? And of course they'll go, look, I am. I really feel like how I'm approaching this is as a good person that's doing their best and has good opinions. But there was a couple of other things I wanted to say in my cue after what you said. So one was around Brené Brown. Brené Brown, very famous Brené Brown.
her.
She helps with giving permission to middle-class white women talking about their difficulties.
Yes.
Because I like when she said, yeah, you're right, you know, this is not her quote, it'll be a long way off it, but something like, you know, you're right, there's people in the world who have terribly harder lives, unspeakable lives and unspeakable tragedy, but that doesn't mean you can't have compassion for yourself and look at how you can have your soul's desire expressed or feel the most peaceful or the most loving. And I like that because what I don't like is the idea, we're not allowed to say there's anything wrong because we've got so many blessings, when actually mentally for a lot of people in the Western world, they're actually having quite a hard time, right? They're not having a great time just because they've got a bit of money or they're not in a war.
Yeah.
They suffer quite a lot mentally, and you know, who we're meant to be and how we're meant to look like. You know, that's where this idea came from, right? Because I was so shitty about, we've got to all say we're perfect all the time. And as we know, it came from my own inauthenticity and lack of vulnerability. But still, it was like, okay, well, let's see if we can have a talk about things and have people feel freer to not have to get it right. I saw a group of mums on the road outside a primary school near home the other day, and they were chatting as mums do after dropping off their kids, and I thought at least one of them is hating life right now. Like, I remember standing around with mums and feeling anxious, and when Sam was little, I had postnatal depression, and I was with a group of, mothers group. It was just torture, and, you're smiling and laughing and just going, kill me now. Like, it's such a terrible thing to not feel safety, to just go, I'm not actually good right now, and for someone to go, that's okay.
Yeah.
I remember sharing in my mother's group something something vulnerable, and the lady I was talking to turned to someone else and went, anyway, how are you, Barbara?
Oh,
and I was
really?
Like, oh, Lord.
Oh,
I've had that happen a few times. It might be connected to your author where you try something and it doesn't work. I remember saying to someone years and years ago when I was trying to be authentic and I was feeling really bad and I was in a group situation. No, it's fair, right? And I went in and they go, how are you? And I said, actually, I feel a bit flat. And they go, don't put your shit all over me. And I was like, no wonder I don't try this. This is terrible.
It's working out terribly.
No one's up for this at all. You just have to pretend everything's fine.
Yeah. Whereas when you were telling that story, I was thinking it was going to go in the direction of, you were the first one to say, I'm not okay. And then everyone else went, oh, thank God someone said it because neither am I. But no, it went the opposite direction.
Absolute opposite. And someone got out their perfectly made ham and cheese sandwich and offered it to their child and then had to give one to Sam because I'd forgotten to bring his snacks. That was the flavour of that whole thing. It was a nightmare.
Well, the good thing is it made for a funny story on your podcast.
Well, worth it? No. It'd have to have about 10,000 stories. But I did make one good friend who lives in Sydney selfishly, and I said to her, you were almost worth Mother's Group. And she said, almost. And I go, it was that bad. You're a wonderful woman, but that was a very bad time. That's great. But it's like, the same thing we were talking about, this, keeping up appearances. I was talking to a colleague yesterday, a very wonderful corporate lady, and I said to her, are you busy? And she said, yep. And then she goes, no, I can't lie, I'm not. And I said, did you feel like you had to say you're busy? She says, yeah, of course. And I said, I remember being in a networking thing years ago when Discern was new, and people are like, oh, I'm so busy. And I said in this group of people, holding onto a wine glass and a canapé, I'm not actually that busy. And it was like record scratch, gasping. People literally didn't know what to say, and one by one kind of wandered away from me because I'd broken a fundamental social rule.
You had. Because we're all very busy with very important things to do.
We're so busy and we're very important. You know when you leave a gap in the traffic so someone can get through? Yeah. And you want the wave back, right?
Oh, yeah, you want the wave.
Beltown Times has talked about it. Everyone's talked about it. We know it, right?
Yeah.
So I left the gap feeling good about myself. I don't know about you, but I feel like best person if I leave a gap. And the person next to me was the best person too because they left a gap and people were turning right. So there was a set of lights up ahead of us. People were turning right and we're leaving the gap. And probably every third car thanked us, so I was starting to get a bit shitty. But this lady came around the corner with the Dunsborough licence plate, new Range Rover, had a little white dog hanging out of the passenger seat. Was a very attractive woman. I could even see at a distance. She comes around the corner. No wave. Let's just say. Every feeling I've ever had about attractive mothers, little white dogs, Land Rovers, and who lives in Dunsborough came up through me. Have you ever heard that thing? I want it to be on my gravestone. It's a meme. I don't know who first said it. If I ever find out, I will shout it out because I love it. It's the person that says, don't be cruel. You never know what someone's going through, or always be kind. You never know what someone's going through. And nice turn signal fuckface. I want that to be my gravestone because it is exactly me. Like I go, Danielle, people are doing their best. Really, we must have compassion. And then today there was someone in the right-hand lane of Row as I was trying to get here on time. And I go, what the fuck do you think you're doing, dickhead? With my 9-year-old in the back going, you right, Mum? I'm like, yeah, love, sorry, a bit harsh. He goes, Mum, bit harsh. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm vicious, right? Like this bitch. Yeah. And then I'm like, Danielle, everyone's doing their best. That person was in the right-hand lane because they're probably scared that they wouldn't know how to do. And that's it's noisy in here, right? Like at the same time I'm going, what the fuck do you think? I'm thinking that, saying it out loud, and then I'm like, they're probably old. They're probably frightened that they know they're going to turn right into Great Eastern Highway bypass, so they've got to get in the right-hand lane 8 k's earlier and just go 30 k's under the speed limit.
Is that the 50-50? Is it that two parts of your brain?
That's that wolves thing, which, the one wolf is mean and da-da-da, and the other one's, that famous American Indian or Native American saying, which I have no idea if it's truly theirs. And, they go, which I have two wolves within me.
Right.
You know that one?
Yeah.
I have two wolves within me, and one is fear and greed and jealousy and anger, and the other one is peace and light and love. And they go, well, how do you make which one live? And it's like whichever one I feed more.
Yes.
That was terribly paraphrased,
No,
but you get the idea.
We got there in the end, and yes, I agree.
So both of mine eat pretty well, I would say.
Yes, that has also been part of the learnings that I've embarked on as well. And it's your focus creates your reality, and it is exactly that, whichever one you feed more.
Yeah.
So I'm choosing at the minute to feed the creative one.
Yeah, right.
The one that wants to just not know how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And experience the world and throw caution to the wind. And I don't know if my other one is an angry one. I think my other one is a fearful one. It says, oh, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have a particular nature that has come from a particular genetic line.
Yes.
And
we've all got our stories. Yeah,
we really do.
Yeah.
And there's this very strong story, and it's hard to tell sometimes what's what, because quite a lot of my that angry part of me, quite a lot of that is angry anxiety. So it's anxiety coming out as irritation.
Oh, is that another emotion hiding underneath?
Yeah, well, that thing they talk about with men, and I can't talk about men because I'm not one, but they often say men have to hide all other emotions that are uncomfortable under anger because it's the only one they're allowed to express.
Yeah.
So I can think of people I know very well, and that's how they express discomfort, is either in irritation or anger. These are both men, and actually they're very sensitive men. And, of course, that's terrible for them, particularly from the generation they're from. So the only way they can express discomfort is angrily or irritably.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't say, I feel frightened or sad. Or that's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
That's the trick,
Isn't
right?
it interesting?
I say to people dealing with real hard asses, or people that are, saying the DISC model, they'd be called a high D, abrupt, fast-paced, demanding. I go, that is an armour. Don't
absolutely
fall for the
that.
fact that you think that the people that are tougher are the people that are introverts and able to express it and are comfortable being their nerdy selves. They're much tougher than your hard-assed, abrupt, rude, irritable, impatient
the one that's
person.
going on the attack. That's their defence.
Yeah,
that's their defence.
Get away from me. Yeah. I am completely unsafe, and I'm going to make sure you stay over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can see it, whether it be about our friendship conversation or anything else. Any time when I need to be less in control, less organised, less I'm all right, Jack, less invulnerable, it's very uncomfortable, because it's like, this is not going to work out well, I'm sure. I've done this other way for so long. It feels much better than... But, of course, then it's unreal. Then it's not authentic.
Yeah.
So how can I bang on about being authentic if I'm not willing to... But it's yucky. I don't like it. I mean, I do like it. I'm doing it. But it does feel a bit icky.
Yeah.
It feels a bit like, ugh, gross. Just remind me how you like to keep distance, because then I'll feel better.
Oh, yeah, 100%, 100%.
We're going to get along fine.
Yeah, no, I'm a happy little introvert. Doesn't need to talk to people for days. But then it's funny because... when I was telling people, because I've started improv. Improv classes.
I love this.
And I was
so
telling
you're braver than me, right? Because I thought, I wonder if I should go with Danielle to improv. I was like, oh, no way. What if I get it wrong? Like, oh, yeah, I think it's awesome. So say more about it.
It was funny because I was telling a person that I work with, and they go, aren't you an introvert? And I said, yes, I'm an introvert, but I'm not shy. There is a difference.
Yes.
Extroverted people can be shy.
Yes.
And I am very much introverted, but I am not shy. And it's the strangest thing, this improv thing. And I very much arrived there through this following my heart, road that I'm on now, that I'm quite committed to, and there's no turning back for me now.
Yes.
And I've taken these little steps of just things that have popped up in my path, and I've just said yes to them, and I've ended up at improv, not really knowing much about what improv classes were like.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of things on TV. I knew I liked that sort of thing when I was little, and I have gone to this class, Tam, and my heart has sung.
Oh, wow.
From the minute I walked in and I met these people who, I can't believe how many of them are so young. A lot of them have anxiety and things like that, but they're willing to have a go and just play. And the whole thing is about play. It's about not thinking about what you're going to say. It's about being in the moment, being present, responding to other people, just play. And you know me, you know what type of career I've had.
Yeah.
Which is
very playful.
Oh, that was sarcasm. I got it now. But, it's been within the lines. It's low risk tolerance. It's very safe. And I am with these people in this class having no idea where this is going to take me, but just knowing, I need to do this. I need to do this. And I love doing this. So I guess I feel a little bit like people that may grow up playing sport. You know,
Yes.
I have friends that are like, they run every day and they love running.
Yes.
And I'm like, I could not imagine anything worse than running every day.
Nightmare.
I've tried it.
Yeah.
But they get, it's just something they have to do
Yeah.
and they're compelled to do it. They'll be in a foreign country and they'll go for a run, and I think maybe for me that's what this part of my personality is. There's a part of me that connects with this type of creativity on a very deep level, and I must do it. Just like those people that have to go running.
Yeah.
I apparently need to stand in a room with 30 people and be silly.
Yes.
And that is something that makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
But when I look at that compared to my life and what it's supposed to be like, it's like, what is that?
Yes.
But that, and a few people have said that in the room when we were talking, that they feel like this is their true selves in this room being playful, and what they do on the other side when they go home to their family and they're with the kids and stuff is, not real, not real, but
yes,
it's the pretend.
Yeah, wow.
The pretend them. And and we went to the place I'm learning with.
Yes.
Once a month they do a performance at Lyrics Underground in Maylands, and they had their first one since I've been with them. There's like, come down, you're all students, you can get in and watch. Tam, they did a 2-hour performance, all made up, based on things that the audience was throwing to them.
Oh, come on.
There was about 7 of them, and they took turns. It was the funniest thing. It was the most creative thing. It was a beautiful thing.
Oh, wow.
And it's that magic of that will never happen again.
Yeah.
They walk in a room, they make everything up for 2 hours, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And then in a month's time, they come back and they do it again. It just blew my mind.
It reminds
I
me
don't
of the.
understand.
Have you ever seen the? Is it Tibetan monks, and they do the mandalas out of sand, and then they
and they wipe
it
everything
away? That reminds me of the performance version of that, right? When you said it'll never happen again.
Yeah.
And it's so funny when you're talking about expressing that part of you, and it's like, this has always been part of me. That freedom, like, it's not part of my known identity. It's a part of how I want to express myself. And I'm sort of reluctant to make it about me, but then I'm like, okay, well, that's why we're here.
That's
so
what we're
fine.
here.
Is when I think of doing it, it's much more connected to my known identity and known ego, right? Because I have stood in front of people, I've made them laugh. So there's total constriction around the idea for me. Like, to go into that room, I don't know whether it's that I wouldn't desire to do it, or I'd have to double up on the willingness to be vulnerable, because I not just have to be at ease with not knowing what's going to happen, but I have to be okay with potentially not being good at one of the pins of this is one thing I know I'm good at.
Yeah, so you think that the stakes are higher for you,
It feels
because
much
you'd
higher.
be expected to be good at it, whereas I'm like walking in there going, I'm a learner, I'm going to be bad at this. And so far the feedback I've had is that I'm pretty bloody good.
That's awesome.
Which, I've like 4 classes in. So
Well, I mean, 2 seconds in, it's amazing. Like that, but that when we were using the example of the stage versus the mandala, like it's and I don't know, I'm making it up, but it feels like learning how to do that mandala calls to me more than the idea of improv.
Yeah.
Just because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if I think honestly, does improv call to me? I think, and again, I'm making it up, talking fast, but I think it only occurs as an opportunity for my ego. I feel like I should be good at that.
Yeah.
I should do that. I don't know if you ever have this, but when I think of something I should be good at, it's painful. So... and it's not that I necessarily want to do it either. So there's a African-American fellow who's like the improv guy, Wayne.
Oh, yes, him.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah, the guy on
Ludicrous.
whose line is it anyway?
Ludicrous,
yes.
right?
Amazing.
Honestly.
And that was really the only improv I had seen before.
And I mean, talk about the one to see, right? I saw him once at Burswood and he was, you could tell he was very, very practiced. So it was easy for him in a way, but... Oh, such a really clever guy, right? But when I watched him, I remember this pain of I should be able to do that. But was it I want to do that? I don't know. Well, I might have to come back to this.
Yeah.
I'll think about it more. Do I want to double up on really going, I actually would love to do that, but I don't want to get it wrong?
Yeah.
Or is it like, no, I actually don't want to do that. It's just that I feel like I should.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. So I've told several people, my colleagues, friends, this is what I'm doing. And not a single person has said that is something they'd want to do. They're like, I'm happy for you, you be you, but that terrifies me.
Yes.
And what I'm finding so interesting about this social experiment is that I think each person's thing is true for them.
Yes.
Like I have stumbled across this thing that is now true for me that I have to keep pursuing.
Yes.
And like the Art of War guy, I would do this, whether I make money out of it or whatever, I'm just going to be doing improv classes forever now. Like it's something I've discovered that I love to do.
Yeah.
I'll be doing it for the love of it.
Yeah.
Regardless. And then other people, everyone has said to me, that is horrifying, terrifying. There's nothing I would hate to do more, which is how I feel about going for a run every day.
Yeah.
But I think everybody has their thing. Everybody has their thing. And also what astounds me is that I'm now 48 and that thing's been inside me since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm only just now embracing it. I think that's terribly sad that society has sort of led me down this path to think that wasn't available for me to do.
Yes.
Or, well, obviously that's a self wall I've put on it
Well,
because it was always available for me to do, but I just never felt that I could. And I just think that that's amazing. Like, how can this thing now that I've just started that I just am so into be something that I have never touched before? And I think that's the little, it's always been there. It's always been there, and it's only now that I'm stepping into who I really am.
Yeah.
That these experiences are now happening.
Yeah. So it's funny, isn't it? I have that same experience of, isn't it sad that we're only realising these things now? And the other part of me goes, I'm so glad we're realising these things. It's 50-50.
Yeah.
How perfect.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that people being terrified, because certainly having met all the people I've met, particularly if I'm training presentation skills or public speaking, I always use the Seinfeld joke, people would rather be in the coffin than doing the eulogy. Most human beings are so worried about getting it wrong. Yeah. And improv is the worst nightmare because it's like I can't even plan for this. No. I can't prep for it.
No.
I've got to do it with no preparation, and I've got to be open and in the moment and lighthearted and free. I mean, that is not how most people are living their lives, right?
That's not how I was living my life either.
No. But your desire, your willingness to go along, and then it's like that draw, right? Like the reason we're sitting here now is the pull of the podcast, as I didn't know it was going to be, just wouldn't. I knew I had to do it. So even though it got quiet, time went on, I didn't know how I was going to create it. I thought, I can't let it go. It's a bit like you said, I'm going to do this now forever. That was how this occurred, was that, I'm I can't let this go now because I just can't. It's come up and it's real for me and I now need to act on it. So that was just solid enough to keep me moving forward. But, you know, two of my girlfriends who know me very well, when I said to them, I did this talk and one of the attendees said I should do a podcast, they both said, why didn't I think of that?
Yes.
Like, they're like, I've listened to you for years. I've told you, like, one of them has been really like, you should be a stand-up comedian, which I did actually want to be when I was younger. I really wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And then I realised a lot of stand-up comedians aren't doing very well mentally. And I thought, let's see if we can try and overcome whatever it is that wants me to be a stand-up comedian. But, yeah, she said, she's always said, we would come to your show, her and her daughter, one of my beloved friends. And then this other friend, who's a newer friend but knows me reasonably well, said, what a great idea. I hadn't thought of that. And I said, I hadn't thought of it, because of that whole, you can't do another podcast. Far out. Is everyone doing a podcast now? It's like everyone's got ADHD. Everyone's doing a podcast. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, I don't have ADHD. I tried to have it, but I didn't. But that's very cheeky of me. I'm not going to be able to say stuff like this on a podcast. I'm going to get sued left, right and centre.
No, we just have to have an appropriate rating
and
risk warning and trigger warning.
Two of my most beloved people in the world have ADHD, actually 3, and their diagnosis has been life-changing, so I shouldn't be silly, but I like being silly.
Yes.
But, yeah, no, that's that improv thing is the fact that because your heart wanted – I think it's twofold. I think your heart wanted to do it as an expression of you, and because you hadn't had in your life the word from the street that your presentation is what makes you worthwhile, you had the freedom to play with it, right?
Yes.
Because that wouldn't have been feedback you would have had out of all your skills. People wouldn't have said, and I might be wrong, right? So correct me. But if you've been known as introverted, therefore people have confused you with shy, they wouldn't have thought of you as a public speaker historically.
Yeah. No, the public speaking I have done has been within an office, teaching CRM or, I've done a lot of work in tech. So I'm explaining technology. This is where you click. This is how you do things. This is why you might want to use this software over that software.
Yes.
It's been very factual. I'm a subject matter expert on those things, and I'm not presenting. I'm just talking about what I know very well.
You can hear
and
it's
a
the
little
flip
bit
side.
like the shadow career, yeah. So when I was working at KPMG and we were doing, they needed someone to do videos, explainer videos. So I did a bunch of those. This is how you use the software type of things. They were only for internal use though. See, this is my other issue is I have only ever been. And it'll be interesting to see where I go with this improv because now it's just a room of people I've become friends with and it's just internal, a bit like the internal presentation. It's not going out to the public. My issue, which I've had also with my writing that I've tried to do, is when it goes public. I think that's also why I feel safe in this podcast room because it doesn't feel like this is actually going public.
It's true. It's true.
And so like you, I had to be pushed to get my first short story into a competition, not for the fact that I was going to win the competition or anything. I just had to go public.
Yes.
This is stuff I've written for me, and now I'm putting it out there. That step for me was huge.
Yes.
I think it's going to be the same with improv. I'm very happy doing it with the friends, and then they're going to say, do you want to come and do it in front of people? And that'll be... I can't wait when we get to that moment, and I'll
you can talk about it
with you. But
that is my quite
threshold.
different.
That is my threshold. That being seen is my threshold. I'm happy to do things where I'm comfortable.
Yes.
But one of my dysfunctional beliefs is that I'm invisible, and when I have to step out to be seen, that is when my anxiety comes up.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. My version of it is I've been out and seen a lot. Well, not a lot, but, being a trainer and all the rest, you are sort of in the public eye more often, but that's been the cultivated me. So what I do is I show me in the training room often in moments where I know it's only this group of people going to see it, or even in a big stage I'll be me, but there's it's not the risk of that audience, it's the risk of hitting an audience that might not like the expression of me that's not the cultivated me. So, you know how I was talking about Carly Lyon, my favourite branding lady? She was saying that she asks her clients, you know, what are you worried about in terms of this going public? Who are you worried, whose opinion are you worried about? And actually often it'll come down to one person, might be their mother, might be a friend. They're just worried about one person. And I can think for myself, a lot of my hang-ups around how I would be seen as me actually come down to a very small and historic group of people. It's if I think about people at large, whether they like it or not, I have a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
But if I don't know my version of your invisible one, it's, you know, the real me's not okay. It's too much.
Too much.
Oh, it's too much.
Oh, so you're not enougher.
No, too much.
You're too much.
Over the top.
Yeah.
Over the top. Dial that whole thing back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of feedback like that but particularly historical relationships, like older relationships where people have either literally said to me, oh, come on, or expressed like, when I've been very enthusiastic about something, it's been like, you are just too much.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's really hurt me, of course, and I've hung on to it because I find things hard to let go of. I was coaching someone a couple
Really?
of...
No.
Yeah, right? I know. It's so strange to hear. I was coaching someone a couple of days ago and they'd had a terrible time in their company and really a lot of things had happened that were just not okay. And as I was talking to this person, I so wanted to join in because I had had a hard time with the same company historically and had a lot of hurt. And as he was saying, I was like, testify, brother. And I was like, yeah, well, I know, because... And I was like, you can't say any of that, Tamara. You're not here to coach this fellow. It's not a therapy session. But, you know, I really noticed, I said to Andy when I was talking about it with him, I said, I'm like him, I haven't let it go. It still flavours everything, you know, and I'm not a good let it goer, really. Andy's better. He'll go, just don't worry, let it go, it's past. I'm like,
Hanging on to that.
no. I said to this fellow, because it's a dream, I read it many years ago, it said, imagine if the people who've hurt you the worst were able to apologise. And then it went on to say, imagine that you got the apology from the person you'd hurt that you're never going to get. And it's such a lovely thought of this. It's a fantasy thing, right, where someone's been terrible to you in some way. And some of the things, like I won't share it because people will recognise who I'm talking about, but abhorrent, immoral, lowest to the low. Like they're really the people I would refer to as C words, and I do not use that word, right? They're just, I don't know why, I don't know how that was doing their best on the flip side of my belief system, but let's say it was. But, they couldn't have understood the impact if that was them doing their best as moral people, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, imagine getting an apology from someone that you're never going to get it from, and it's actually very healing if you can just pretend that you're getting the apology. And they go, I had no idea how much that hurt you. I'm so sorry. I was feeling insecure myself, or I was feeling confronted, or I'm really sorry for the impact that had on you. Like even as I say it, as a different people filter through my mind, and luckily it's not too many in my life. I have had a good life. But, yeah, if they were able to say that, I can just feel the, that's so nice, thank you. And as I said it to this guy, his face changed because he was really in this, and this happened and that happened, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, I can hear it, brother. And then I said, imagine if they actually genuinely apologised to you, and this moment came over his face where his eyes sort of cleared and he stopped frowning and he had this moment of, yeah, imagine that. And then his frown came back and he's like, that's never going to happen. And I said, I know. I just wanted you to imagine it for a minute.
Do you think there's an element in there, what struck me as you were talking, reflecting on my invisibility thing, do you think there's a moment, like whatever it is that you believed about yourself at that time, and then they say that comment to you,
Yes,
and you receive it in such a strong way because you have this belief, and I'll reflect on that and say, with my invisibility one that I have,
yes,
I often will say, people just don't notice me, or, you know, but that's because I'm receiving the world through my lens of I'm invisible, which is something I've constructed for myself based on childhood stuff or whatever.
Yes.
And so things that happen to me then I then look at through that lens of people don't see me, or people are responding to me in this way when maybe I'm not saying that they aren't. People can treat me as invisible.
Yes.
That's that could be a factual thing.
Yes.
But then I think on top of that, I build a lot of that when I'm interacting with people as well.
I think that's very true. Like there's a saying,
so you
people
already
can
have sort of a susceptibilty to this thing, and then someone says something that's just like sticking the knife in, and
Yeah, I can think of two different versions. So absolutely I would agree that when you have a view of the world, that will show up all over the place. So, people can only be as you expect them to be is the saying that I say. I saw it happen once where I was dealing with someone and then my friend was dealing with the same person and I noticed that person was totally different because of what was coming at them. And what was coming at them from me was sort of defensiveness and aggression, and what was coming from the other person was love and acceptance. So they literally transformed in front of my eyes when they started talking to this other person.
Yeah.
So I think that's true. And one of the people that had hurt me most in my life and has got a lot of their own issues that cause these behaviours, but absolutely it would be that I was feeling very vulnerable about something and then they would comment on that thing. So they were and are still for some reason kind of a predatory kind of person. So they're looking for fear, looking for gaps. And take advantage of that. And actually, as I have become more confident, more secure, had this loving marriage, had this child, feel better in my life in general, they haven't been able to access me in the way they've wanted. So even when they've had a go, I couldn't even really comprehend what they were saying last time. And I said, what are you saying? And they're like, oh. And I was like, okay, see you later.
Yeah.
And that was very nice to not feel so vulnerable.
Yes.
The other ones, it's harder to say. It was more like in this work situation where I was saying testify to the fellow in my own mind. It was just, I think actually it wasn't to do so much. It was definitely to do with he or I's vulnerability in terms of not having the power in the relationship. But really the impact came from the other person not being thoughtful. So in either case, the person that communicated in a way that devastated him or me was just that they were coming from their point of view with no consideration for the impact of that on the other person. A lot of ego, a lot of control and being a victim of that, because I think the closest to what you're saying about that in terms of creating a situation was creating a situation where that particular income stream or that particular element of our work was so important that I was left incredibly vulnerable. And then as soon as I came up against the wrong personality, that was what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and interestingly, that led on to other opportunities for different work, better clients, other things. But at the time, it felt devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never recovered. Like we work with that client now and I'll often have a lot of fear come up. And I think I've actually got, and I'm not a psychologist, but I think around this subject I do have a bit of PTSD.
Yeah.
I do have
Yeah.
and he'll say, it's all right. I go, it's not all right. They're going to do the same thing again. And he'll say, no, they're not. And if they do, it'll be all right.
Yeah.
But I'm really like a taut wire about it.
Yeah.
Never really got over it.
Yeah.
And fantasise about what I would say to the people involved. But I don't say that to the people involved. Because actually then, of course, my other thing kicks in. It's why I live such a confused life, because I go, I'm going to tell this person X, Y and Z. And then I go, love, you know who they are, why they were doing it, their vulnerabilities, their insecurities, was their ego and control issues at play. There's it's another one of the memes. They say it's so terrible when you learn enough about psychology to be able to forgive everyone. So fucking frustrating,
Isn't
right?
it? Yes.
You just want to give it to them and you go, oh, okay.
All I can think about is, so what happened to them in their childhood that makes them speak to me like this now? That's all I think about.
Me too.
Every time I have one of those experiences.
I know.
Something happens at work or I'm dealing with a client and I'm like, what happened in your childhood?
Right.
And then I'm actually curious and then I do actually stop to ask. So,
do you?
Oh, yeah. But
what
not
happened
like
in your childhood?
Not directly, indirectly.
Say.
But I'm then more curious about the person because I like talking about this stuff than I am. But I think it kind of takes the power out of it.
It does.
When you can just look at the other person and that sounds terrible. What's wrong with you?
That's exactly what I do. That's the only way I get freedom.
Yeah.
The only way I can access love for people I hate is to have compassion.
Yeah.
And the first one, the one that was the predatory person, when I finally got, imagine being in your head, imagine what goes on in your noggin, I thought, wow, I can really bring up compassion for you because
Yeah.
it must be a hellscape in there. Imagine just being on the lookout for how you can attack other
Yeah.
people as a way to try and survive your insurmountable pain and self-hatred.
Yes.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, I go,
And it's terrible that those people are so dangerous and so prevalent.
well, that's right. I put a slide up when I'm doing speaking and it talks about this idea and it's like, I can never remember it exactly. It always gets a laugh, but I literally use it. And it's like, no matter what they've done to you, it's not as bad as what their life is like, right?
Yes.
And people laugh when I put it up, I think because it feels vicious. But actually, it's where I get my compassion from.
Yeah.
I go, really, like you hurt me on X, Y, or Z occasion, but I don't have to live in your head.
Yeah.
And then I say to people, but, you know, you might think, well, I've got a psychopath at work and they're not suffering at all. And I go, no, they're not suffering, but they're also not experiencing life in a normal way.
No.
They don't have access to reality.
No.
So they're missing their whole life.
Yeah.
They're not suffering
Yeah.
potentially because they've got...
Well, the suffering might come later.
Like that.
You know, yeah. When you have people that, you know, their whole thing is about not wanting to be alone and manipulating other people around them for that. And then those people don't like being manipulated and those people end up alone.
Yeah.
And
get this terrible, most not wanted outcome.
yes. But the way they've been striving to achieve that through machinations and whatever has driven everybody away.
I know.
Yeah.
It's terrible,
Sorry,
isn't
I
it?
don't know how we got on this topic.
It's
Have
all
I?
right. It's just because we were talking about how to...
Did you want to circle back to anything that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think this was still in the realm. To be honest, I always expected that we were
doing
going...
improv.
Yeah. Isn't it yes and? That's
It is
all I
yes
know
and?
about improv.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, all I know
Yes
is you say
and.
yes and, but I don't understand it. So if someone's saying a line as the other person talking to them, do you literally say yes and, or do you have in your mind yes and?
We've been saying out loud yes and, but we've been playing games that involve that as well. So, for example, you could just say something really boring to me. Like,
Yes.
I put my shoes on this morning
Okay.
and my job is to go, yes, and I put on my shoes too. Or, you know, like accept your gift of something boring and turn it into something else.
I even liked how you said that, which I shouldn't have. That's illogical, but you did it very well.
But how much fun, can you imagine 30 people in the room and everyone goes around and says, I combed my hair this morning, and we all go, yeah,
Yes.
you combed your hair this morning. Like this, so it's. I feel a little bit like those evangelical people, you know. Yes, you did.
That's
and
so
it was
awesome.
fun.
I can both exactly feel your joy at it and my horror at the
And
idea.
isn't
They're both
that
there
the-
together. I'm
isn't
like, that
that-
sounds wonderful. No.
And this
No.
is what is perplexing me is that most people feel the horror, and
It's because of this whole thing we're talking about. It's what's my persona. It's not that. I'm trying not to get anything wrong. This is a good comeback to the beginning, right? I'm trying to not get anything wrong. I've got this confused story that everyone's out to get me when no one's thinking about me ever, which is, I wish we could all understand that just a little bit.
Yes.
And then so I can't do that. I'm not going to yell about someone brushing their hair. That'll look ridiculous. And then I can't get it wrong, and I'll definitely get it wrong because I don't know what I'm doing. And then other people will think I'm silly. And then, of course, it goes back to the whole primal thing I'm always banging on about in my talks around you can't get rejected from the fire. That's why we don't want to be rejected from a group, because historically it's only 12,000 generations ago we were cave people. If you did something stupid and the group decided they're not up for you, they would cast you away from the fire and you would die.
Yeah.
And that's why none of us want to die. Therefore, none of us are doing improv, Danielle. But we're very proud that you are. And I'd prefer if we never talk about it again. I'm actually going to explore it more in my own mind. I don't think I'm going to come up with a different answer.
Just come with me to the next monthly one that they do. The
performance?
Performance, because it will blow your mind.
Okay.
It will blow your mind.
Okay. I even feel uncomfortable about that. I'm more likely to say yes to that than to coming to the actual thing where I'm like, no, hard no. But, let's talk about this, sum up this Little Dreams, Big Dreams, right, where we've gone all around the houses. But it's been about this idea. So, I think probably more than anything in terms of people are already living their big dream. They don't need any of this apart from, that's good reassurance as to the feeling I have, the lightness, the joy, the freedom, the expression. It's really a drive, but it's not a drive coming from a place of pain. It's a drive of, like you said, I can't not do this. It's a happy, not even, that's not the right word. It's kind of a compulsion,
Yes.
but from the most joyful expression, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about this. Originally we said we'd do once a month. Then I was like, no, let's do once a week.
Yay.
And then you know what I thought? I really wanted it to be on a Friday afternoon. I often want to have a drink. I don't always, but I often do. But often I've got to get from somewhere to wherever it is I'm drinking.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I would
could
like
just
this
stop in on the way.
topic to be like the Friday 50-50. So like when people are coming home from work on a Friday, that this is what they want to listen to.
Yes.
And I don't know if it'll be a good match.
I love that.
But I like the idea.
I think you just stumbled on our theme.
Friday
Our-
50-50. Do you just went like that, like you're scratching a record?
Did I?
So we'll have people already living their big dreams
Yes.
who are like, whatever, I know all about that.
Yes, yes, that would be helpful.
Right?
They've walked the walk
They've-
and talked the
yeah,
talk
like
and
I've got
done
it.
the journey.
I've got it.
Yeah, we'll get a lot of reassurance from that.
That's
yeah.
true. And then there'll be people, I really love that shadow thing. I think everyone who's listening will be like, am I doing the real one or the shadow one?
Go and
And
read
you
the
kind
book.
of will know. It's kind of like,
know.
Before
It
you
took
have...
me a long time
Yeah,
to.
right. But
yeah.
put it this way. Before you have an orgasm, you go, I think I might have had one. Then you have one. You know you never had one before. So, this is unequivocal. Now I know.
Now we're definitely at the Friday drinks.
Absolutely. Right? I don't know if Grayson's got an orgasm noise, but that might be too much. Anyway, I'll dial that whole thing back. It's Saturday morning. No one's been drinking. Grayson's been
You
drinking.
wouldn't know it.
He probably hasn't. So people already living the big dream. Then people taking your info and going, hang on, is my career my shadow career? Then, of course, there's people who are probably like, leave me alone. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I don't care if it's the shadow or whatever, and I'm definitely not doing whatever you fuckers are doing. Like, that's fine. But what's the idea? The idea is really... For me, if someone could have said to me 10 or 15 years ago, don't worry, you're getting there.
Yeah.
Not, what is it? I've got to get it. Like, less of a must do and more of a... many, many years ago, this is embarrassing to share, but I'll share it anyway. I used to be obsessed with being the Australian Oprah. I was like, I need to be the Australian Oprah, right?
Yeah, you do. It doesn't help that I encourage you, does it? Yeah, you do.
The billionaire part, I'm on board. But what happened was it was coming from a place of I'm not good enough, right? So, it was two things at once. There is a part of me that wants to express myself that way. That's why we're sitting here right now. But the other part was that will show I'm good enough. So, Jim Carrey, at one of his Golden Globes or Emmys or Oscars, might have been Emmys, and he said, good, now I've got 2 of these. Once I've got 3, I'll know I'm good enough, right? It's perfection.
Yeah.
And so the driver was too much from I'm not good enough. At this point now, if I go, I want to be the Australian Oprah, the flavour of that is different. It's both an unknown if that is true, but also it's not from, I'm not good enough. It's from if I want to speak or if I want to be in the public eye or if I want to be in the public ear like we're doing at the moment, it's more of a joyful expression than then I'll be good enough.
Yeah.
Because actually I realised the thing that I needed for my own bar of being good enough, coming from my own history, was if my business is financially successful without any other sources of income. So we have made it. I just did quotes or air quotes. That will make me feel like I've succeeded. And I definitely notice that is true. I also do shift the bar for what success is. So I go, okay, I've done that, now what's next? But that is softening as I go, look, you've done enough to show you good enough. There's no real test anyway. You've been confused the whole time.
Yes. Yes.
Like you said last time.
I feel
when I
so
went,
ripped off.
It's like, we got it.
I was like, I followed all the rules. What do you mean?
Honestly, I've worked so hard for so long. It turns out I didn't need to do any effing thing.
of that.
I was whole and complete and perfect.
Rule following.
That's lame,
Out
mate.
the window.
Jeez, it's in there. You're whole and complete and perfect.
Yeah.
I remember going, what the hell? It's ludicrous. I'm so far from And then you
Do
go,
you think that's
oh,
the only way to learn the lesson is to be so wrong that
Yeah.
when you see the right, you're like, oh.
well, now we know. That's good. Better late than never.
That is true. That is
Honestly.
true. I wouldn't have been ready for it before.
Well, that's the
Wouldn't
other
have been
thing. When
ready.
you said, oh, you know, I've got this far. And
No, I'm
actually,
very proud of everything I've done
Yeah,
before.
yeah, like that.
And I see that it has led me here to this room, to this moment,
Yeah, that's it.
to sit with the Australian Opera. And you get a
good.
car.
And you get a car. I actually did Channel Oprah the last time I had
Grayson
to do a
would
talk.
like a car.
Yeah, like that. And
Giving
you get a
cars
car.
out. We were just talking this morning about a new Mercedes that's coming out.
Oh,
Thanks,
don't even talk to me. My dream. I was watching
Tam
a.
likes Mercedes
I love
too.
them really so much.
Sorry,
it's
I
all right.
digress.
It's happy. It's happy pain. They had a politician on Stephen Colbert last night, and they were getting him for getting bribes, I think. And one of the bribes was a convertible Mercedes, and we were watching it together. I go, worth it. And really, I'd commit any crime, do any. I really love a Mercedes very much.
Oh, dear.
But when I had to give a talk, the last on a 2-day set, oh God, what a time to try and talk to people. Anyway, so I said, oh, I wish like I was from like Oprah, and I put an Oprah gif up with her going like that. And I said, and you get champagne and you get champagne. And then I had this picture come up on the PowerPoint where the doors opened and these hot waiters came in with champagne glasses. I was like, I wish I could do that for you. I can't afford champagne for 350 people, but that was my Oprah moment.
Yes.
So, yeah. I don't know about Australian Oprah, but I do like the idea of it coming from a place of joy and freedom, not from I have to, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, which is where Oprah operates from. You know, she has created her empire fulfilling her true nature and purpose, which is to talk and ask questions, and, you know, she doesn't always get it right, but she has taken a lot of risks and followed her path. And I think if we do that in each other's worlds, then that's the best we can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Oprah, but I think she would
like
be
I
yeah, we all feel like we do, right? But I feel like she would have had to been a combo. She would have been driven, very driven, and then as time's gone on and she's created the financial security, created more power in her world and what she creates, she made it more and more her heart's desire.
Yeah.
Don't you get that flavour?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
she's like, right, man, I'm going to be X, Y, Z. She was always a go-getter, even in childhood, and she was driven, and then she's like, right, I'm secure. So in that way, I'm a bit like Oprah, right? I had to go, get career,
Yeah, we've done the
get
hustle.
right. I've done
we've
that.
tested that
Now,
life
what's
and
my
went,
heart's expression?
Yeah,
she was
absolutely.
probably worth about 100 mil when she swapped to, but close enough, right? Can eat, have a house.
Have a house, that's it.
Don't have the
a car.
Mercedes yet, but I can put it aside for now. Not for long. Yeah, I can put it aside.
Yeah, it's just
I love
stuff.
the dream.
It's just
stuff. And you have it for a fortnight and then go,
stuff.
when's the new model coming?
Yeah, I just wish I understood that earlier. It's just stuff.
Yeah.
And there is just one life. Oh God, now I'm going to sound like one of those people.
I know.
You just
Do
get
I
one
say-
shot.
Do I say testify or yeah? Woo!
Just go for it. Live your best life.
But
That
you know
does
when you're
sound
talking about
cliche.
material stuff,
When I'm on, there'll be lots of cliches and lots of misquoting. I feel like I should do a disclaimer. Lots of misquoting, lots of forgetting which author I've read. Lots
you're
of
doing
getting
my
titles
disclaimer.
wrong.
You're doing my disclaimer because it's exactly the same. I'll go, Sam Harris said this. Well, not exactly this. Actually, it's nothing
You really
like what he
should
said.
remember who said it.
No, one of the other person I was going to refer to, I was like, like that, and then just gave a quote. Say memes, I don't know. And I said
that's the beauty of-
American Indians, like I'm 85. They're not known as that anymore.
I think that's called the amateur podcast. You know, we can just get away with
My
a whole bunch of
ego,
stuff.
Danielle.
Oh,
Amateur.
sorry.
Come on, just because we've done it twice doesn't mean we're not top level professionals. Have I not explained my
It's the third
ego
one.
to you?
It's the third one. The third one we're
We're going to be professional.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Just like, was it Jim Carrey? Yeah.
Jim
third
Carrey.
one's
He'd be interesting to meet.
Yes.
I made up a saying. I make up sayings and no one takes them on. But one of my favourite sayings is, "A spark can grow, but repulsion is forever." I'm really trying to get that on board, but most people don't take it. One of my other ones is, "Gum nut is nature's ball bearing." because it's so slippy. And then another one is when you're very frustrated, you're like a kelpie in a courtyard, because I have a lot of upset about people having kelpies who should be on farms. But the one I want to say now, when you said it's just stuff, I was like, money can't buy happiness, but you can rent it for a while. I think my sayings are so good and they don't catch on at all. I think you should have been a stand-up comedian.
Well,
that's what last time I spoke, one of the people who watched me speak said, that was like stand-up. And I was like, yeah, but nah. We'll just express it in the ways like this, right? Rather than I just flew in here and...
We will.
That's enough, isn't it, for today? Jeez, we've gone on. Poor old Grayson. He has to be in the room the whole time. He's probably watching YouTube on subtitles.
Well, it's been a great episode. Thanks for
Well,
all
I've
your stories.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
If that's the point, we are winning.
I think
if
that
the
is the
whole
point,
is that
for
we
us
have a
to
good
have fun.
time, then we've done it, man.
I think so
We are
too.
laughing. This thing is going to be such a success. Under the level we've set. We're happy. Thanks for listening.